So on this one we will be checking out the dual core AVX512 monster, so the Pentium Gold G7400. The G7400 isn't obviously a very suitable CPU for this kind of motherboard, as it only costs somewhere around like 70 or 80 euros. So yes, you aren't going to be buying an 80 euro CPU for a 600 euro motherboard or something like this. But anyways, the only thing that makes the CPU model kind of interesting is that it has, well, technically but unofficially, AVX512 support at very low price tag. So if you manage to find like a very cheap motherboard, this could be an interesting CPU for some use cases. So the only interest that I have on this CPU model is that it's the fastest dual core CPU, and I want to output some competitive benchmark results in 2-core category on hardwareboard.org. So I managed to get hold of 2 CPUs. These are still very hard to find at the time of making this video, but thanks to my YouTube fans, I managed to get hold of 2 individual CPUs. So huge thanks once again. So if you want to support my channel, then you can, for example, check out my Patreon page and send me a message there, or just join my Patreon Discord channel, whatever. But anyways, so the CPU that I'm running at the moment is the better CPU of the 2. Both of them are doing completely fine, but the second one was a little bit better. So I thought about doing this video pretty much the same way what I did with the 12300. So I will just go straight to the results that I got and just talk a little bit about the whole experience with the CPU on this motherboard. Now the sad thing at the time of making this video is that the AVX512 isn't working correctly on this CPU model. It did work just fine with the 12300 and with the other CPU models, but with the G7400 the AVX512 support isn't working, and that will be fixed. But anyways, I will load the profile with the G7400. So the maximum clock speed I managed to do was 5.5 GHz at 1.4 volts. Both of the CPUs could do 5.4 GHz just fine with 1.35 volts in Cinebench R20 and so on. But of course, as the AVX negative offsets aren't working, you need to use a clock speed that would be stable in all of those situations. So maybe in this case with the G7400 or with this G7400, the clock speed to go for could be like 5.3 GHz roughly, I think, like so. So I will show this result to you anyway. So 37 with as 37 is the maximum multiplier for the actual cores, and cache can go up to 37, but we will use 31 in this case, and base clock is 148.7 to get the 5.5 GHz overclock. So the actual overclocking happens through base clock adjustments, as we cannot move the multiplier any higher than 37. Then 1.4 volts minus 75%, same PWM switching frequency. The VDDQ, the same story as with the 12300. So lower is better, and 1.26 volts was working just fine for me, and it was better than 1.35, for example. So those are the voltages. Memory, this particular CPU has quite a bit better IMC than the 12300. So the maximum memory I could do, like fully stable in HEIMM test, was roughly 6.6 GHz or 6600 mega transfers per second. So it's roughly 200 megahertz or mega transfers per second better than the 12300. I could also post and boot like even over 6800 just fine, but it wasn't stable in HEIMM test. So that kind of proves that the IMC quality does vary quite a bit on these Alder Lake CPUs. Remember, these sticks are confirmed 6933, fully stable in HEIMM test. So this is the sticks aren't the limiting factor in this case. So I will put 6542 and 1.435 volts was the voltage, and yeah, pretty simple timing table, and yeah, PS2 devices support, so I will just F10, save and exit these settings, and let's look at the performance inside the operating system. Okay, so 2156. The best score I managed to do was like almost 2200, so 2199 at pretty much the same setting table, same clock speed, same cache, only the memory was lower, but doesn't really matter. So that's pretty much it. The only thing that differed from the 12300 overclocking was that with the G7400 the AVX negative offsets, they are working partially. So I set negative offset of 2 for AVX1 and AVX2, but it's actually lowering the multiplier by value of 1 under AVX based workloads. So let's open up PRA95. I just want to show you. So small FFT 512 is grayed out because it's not working, but let's open up AVX1. So it's lowering the multiplier by 1. So but it's sometimes jumping to 5.5 gigahertz. So it's not working like fully, but it's still better than nothing. So with this we can obviously make the whole thing much more stable. So as the temperatures are so easy, so still under 70 degrees, but maybe 70 degrees max, it's very easy to get at least 5.4 gigahertz, like fully stable. So 5.4 is definitely doable in non-AVX and probably under AVX based loads as well. So currently we are running 5.5 gigahertz for non-AVX situations and 5.35 for AVX based workloads. So it's pretty good, I guess. Let's try to run AVX2 just out of curiosity. Small FFT and AVX2 still lowering, and the temperature is somewhere around 70 degrees. So this is definitely doable because of the lower clock speed. The biggest question mark at the moment is that 5.5 gigahertz clock speed stable in non-AVX PRA95. With the other CPU models I have been testing this far, if you have been following my channel, usually the AVX based workloads have been easy because you can use as high negative offset as you want. The heat is still an issue because most of the heat comes from the voltage, so even with the lower clock speed you are still going to be hitting very warm temperatures. So the hardest part has been getting the non-AVX clock speed stable. So let's stop that again and let's fire up non-AVX PRA95. So disable and disable. So 65, pretty much the same temperature as what we had in R20. So yeah, it's only about time, so I would have to let this run for long enough to verify the stability, but we can call the CPU 5.4 stable at least, and I think the 5.5 is possible, but of course not with a more realistic cooling solution. But this is just something that can be done and not something that you should be doing, obviously. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. So quite interesting results overall with the G7400, but seems to run just fine. Now the last thing is the memory. So yes, the IMC was a little bit better than with the 12300, so I could do a bit higher clock speeds on the memory. So here was a past run at 6600 plus, so 6616, 31, 38, 38, 70 common rate 1, so 8 threads times 3700, around 30 gigabytes being used. Here is the SPD information of the Corsair Vengeance sticks, and the temperature was well around the same what we had in R20 and in PRA95. So I used 5.4 gigahertz at 1.35 volts for this use. So pretty good results overall, and I was able to post and boot memory frequencies over 6800. So definitely much better than what I had with the 12300. So it kind of proves us that the IMC quality does vary quite a lot on these Alder Lake CPUs. Well, that's kind of obvious because DDR5 is still very early on in the whole scene. So obviously DDR5 as well as the IMCs for DDR5 will mature over time once we go further into the future. But still pretty interesting numbers overall. So these are pretty much the overclocking results and like experiences with the dual core Pentium G7400 on the Z690 dark KINGPIN. The G7400 is definitely an interesting CPU if you really need AVX512 CPU for very low price. So to have any sense at all, you would have to find a motherboard that has very low price tag, as you don't want to be spending too much money on a motherboard, nor on the memory kit or on the cooling solution when you go for 70 or 80 euro CPU. So that's something quite obvious. So you aren't going to be buying a motherboard like this just for a Pentium G7400 unless you are an overclocking maniac like me. So that's pretty much like the honest answer to those questions. But yeah, so if you like to see these overclocking results and the G7400 Pentium on my channel, then please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And thanks for watching one of my videos once again, and I will see you on the next one.